So, if you're somebody that's not 18 years old, let's say you're just someone in high school or maybe youngster in grade school, and you're watching YouTube videos, and you come across this channel here and my conversations and my ideas and my beliefs or my opinions on the Measterpool channel, that I'm not responsible for you and how you behave in the world. I have no. Okay, if you were an adult, that somebody that's 18 or older, then there's no issues. But evidently, there has to be some kind of a declaration before I make these videos that the content of the video is specifically not really directed towards children, people under the age of 18. So I'm just making that declaration up right now up front, because I know how important it is to let the audience know that if you're a kid and you're watching me right now, then you should probably at least have your parents know what kinds of videos you're watching. Because your parents are responsible for you before you become an adult. You have to have guidance. You have to have an adult that takes care of you, that watches over you, that doesn't allow you to become exposed to just anything out in the world as far as media goes. That if your parents are good people, then they'll know what you're watching, or they'll watch the videos with you. And so the ideas I'm going to be discussing aren't really relevant to younger youths. I'm not directing this conversation towards the younger people in that age group. This is for people that are over 18 years old to talk about or to have involvement in discussion about the topics that I'm going to talk about on this channel. So I'm just letting you know that the kids that are under 18, the material that I'm presenting, it's not, there's no, I'm not promoting any games, or I'm not trying to sell something that may or may not be, this is kind of what am I going to do now? I need to edit this and start over, because this is stupid. I'm losing the focus. My main focus attention was to do why I'm an anti-natalist, why I'm against causing new people to come about to exist as a human being. Why I think, just from my own point of view, I can only tell you, okay, I'm going to pretend like I'm talking to my parents or my aunts or uncles or my brothers and sisters or cousins right now. So I'm going to be telling this video as if I'm sitting in an auditorium, and everybody in my family, immediate family, and my in-laws are all there and listening to me have this conversation, and how I'm going to describe why I'm an anti-natalist. And to somebody in a group or in a clan or a family or a tribe, they would see that position as being you're against the family. They would see that as a subversion against the family line. You're like a traitor to your own kind, because you want your family line to die out. So and that I'm not just saying that just for my own family line. I've made a decision myself a long time ago in my life, through just experiences that I've witnessed other people have experiences in their life while they're alive. Things happen that made me dawn on me that being a father is not a good idea. Not bearing a child, not causing a child to come into existence is that's the best thing I could do ever. It was almost like I always kind of felt like that since puberty, and and my early years going to the dentist and going to the different doctors and having different like medical problems and having problems with getting along in school and not understanding the lessons or getting behind them because I get sick and then I get behind in the lessons and my grades are lousy, and that holds me back because if you get good grades then there's more opportunities to learn different things, and you get passed up and marginalized because you're not an exceptional child, you're just an average kid. um, and then you have an older brother that's a year older than you that puts you down and berates you and tries to embarrass you and kind of really doesn't want you to succeed. They're kind of like it's a one-upmanship thing. They want you to fail. They're not real supportive of you as a younger brother. You're not, hey, younger brother, hey, how's it going? Let me help you out. Let's try to work this out, and be like on your side. In when things happen to you in the world, and be there to like help you out or give you some guidance or. But for me, my older brother, there were times when we fought. I remember waking up and he took some shit and he shoved it right into my face while laying in bed. He was really mad at me. And another time, he was going to hit me with a coffee mug. He was standing over the bed. He was going to smack me on the head with a coffee mug, because there was an incident where he was inside of a tent setting it up, and he was moving around. As he was moving around underneath the canvas of the tent, I took a a pipe, like a plumbing pipe, a metal plumbing pipe, and I hit him on the head while his head was underneath the canvas of the tent, and I blamed it on a neighbor kid. So my past is like how I got along with the neighbors and my people I knew at school. That beta, I would hang out with the betas, in the be with the nerds, hang out with nerds and not be a jock or not be really Mr. Popular or anything, not really good or exceptionally good at anything, and just um I was very insecure around girls. The ones that I liked, I was insecure around, and there were girls that were attracted to me that I was not really attracted to them. I mean, it was like my body form, my height, and my weight, and my stature, and that didn't match them physically that well. I felt like I was not a good match for them, but they liked me. They were attracted to me. So, and there was a lot of that, and then there were girls that were just wanted me, and just I gave in to one girl. I was drunk, and she just so there's been times, and that was she was taking birth control, so she didn't get nothing ever happened that I know of. If she had a kid that she never told me about, secret, keep it out of your. Don't let you know that I have a kid and hide and go away, and I never hear from her again or never see her again. And but having a kid and causing a girl to become pregnant, and when I seen pregnant girls in high school that got pregnant and they were still in high school going to class, that was scary, because I'd look at this girl and I go, wow, you're just still a kid. Why? How come you're having a kid? You're having a kid and you're a kid? Something's wrong. It doesn't seem. It seemed like that's kind of like putting a real fork in the road of your life. All of a sudden, you're having to take care of another person. So you're all the schooling that you would have, and the going to college and advancing in a career is being held back by having that kid. And the responsibility too. All of a sudden, now you're responsible for somebody else's welfare and well-being. You're tied to that person. and for 18 years, and it's like, and all these all these horrible things happen in your life too. You know people, and they get really sick, or they get cancer, and then they commit suicide. And there's other people at school that have killed themselves, that fought with, they had a problem with gender identity, or they were really into drugs and drinking heavy and overdosed on heroin, or uh, got brain cancer, got in a horrible automobile motorcycle accidents, getting killed going off the sides of a bridge, and people that you were friends with that are just like, they dead, they die, or they like, girl that like, she's a good friend of yours, you've known her since you were kids, since you were in your young teenage years, and you're watching her shoot black tar heroin in her arm in the bathroom of her mother's house, and she's got two kids already, and then she gets on the heroin, and then she gets inside of the crib with the two kids and goes to sleep. Um, and then I was like into AA at the time, and I thought, you know what? If I could get her to go to AA meetings with me, maybe she could straighten out. Um, but her mother had a player piano in the living room, and she would drink vodka and put different music in the player piano, and then dance around and sing to the music that the player piano would be playing. So it was kind of like she was like very. I think she had parents that were in Hollywood, and yeah. So I don't know. But this planet, I bringing somebody here onto this world, and all of the risks, all the terror that's going to happen through their life. They're going to experience horrible things, maybe disasters, and or just see people get sick and die from disease, or people getting beat up and mugged and shot at, and having to go to war and pay taxes and work every day, all the drudgery, all of the misery and the sadness and sorrow and suffering and anguish and struggling, and fear and hopes and pain, and bringing somebody here because you want to have a little you want to cause a little you, so you can have that to be like amused by. You want to amuse yourself so you bring a child into the world, so you can indulge yourself in wanting to play like with a little boy and throw a ball around with him, and play and act like a little kid again, and play like you're a big kid and he's a little kid, and play games, and to be use diversions of like, for getting in social circles, and having like, uh, respect in the community because you're a dad. You get like recognition from being a parent in the community. All that, it's just, but the person still, they got to be a live person and live a whole long lifetime and experience a whole lifetime of different things happen to them. So the burden is on the person that brings another person into being. The burden should be, they've, through negligence, or through not planning, and not having any kind of um, um, respect for the person they're bringing here, and prepared the world for that person. So the bird will build a nest, and then once the nest is finished, the bird will lay the egg. The bird will mate, and then the bird will lay the egg in the nest. They just don't, women having babies and children on garbage dumps in all these impoverished places where there's these slums, and there's hundreds and thousands of square miles of just slums, old dilapidated buildings, and dirty sewer streets, and uh, back alleyways, and the smell of things burning all the time, garbage everywhere. the smell, and then people are like always hungry, and they're always never get enough to eat, and they get sick, and people are really desperate. There's a lot of crime, and you're bringing somebody here. Why are you bringing somebody here? Why not? If you have this, if you have like this sociopathy to be a ruler over someone else, you want to be able to control, mold, and shape someone else's life and guide them and direct them. Somehow you have some special gifts or some you could pass on to someone else. You can find a person somewhere that's a needy child that's already here, and you could give them you could be a loving dad or a loving mom to that person, and you could have profound effect upon them. And transmit all your values and your knowledge and your training and your skills, and give that person that opportunity with the proper nutrition and the best schooling, and in a good, nurturing, loving household with parents that care for the child, that adopt the child. And that's far more noble than going to like trying to go get a baby, trying really hard, going to like fertility clinics and that. If you got, don't bring somebody else here. Look, this place is terrible. I think that when I first started hearing people talk like that on here, that this place is not a good place. You should not bring someone here. They have to live their whole life, and then they have to face their own death. They have to face their own mortality. You bring someone here, forcing them here to have to do that. So that's another whole other psychological trauma that lingers at the back of the mind about our personal impending doom that inevitably will happen. Our bodies will fall apart. We'll end up being sucked back into the nothing from whence we came. So you're forcing somebody to have to deal with a dilemma of like, they exist now and then they're not going to exist. You're like forcing someone here to have to face their own prospect of non-existence eventually. So that's cause of suffering. That's a different kind of, that is suffering, but it's not the same kind of suffering as like stepping on a nail or getting burned by hot oil splashing on your body and being burned, or having a really bad sunburn, or having your tooth drilled at the dentist, or falling down, scraping your body bad and breaking your bones. There's all these things happen. And why do you want to bring somebody here to risk that to have to happen to them? Are you like, it's better to find somebody that you can take care of that's already here, a child that's already here, that's in need, that, but don't bring any more. If you're like, your family line, okay, it's just a family line. It's just another. If you're like very very wealthy person, and you don't want to be forgotten, okay? And there's this really huge burden on you to like always want someone around to remember you. You want to be enshrined. You want to be held. You want your character and your reputation to be. You want to be somebody that's remembered in society. You want your name to live on, and you want to create progeny so that you can have them have that name, and them have that mustache or that hairline or the jawline or their tallness or thinness or fatness. Or you want another you here to have to deal with all of this over again, and then they have to face their own death eventually. They have to come to the conclusion that, oh, you know what? Guess what? There's really no God. These people that have been running around with these Bibles telling you there's this God out there this God had a son, and this God was like, took on the personality of this man was the personality of this this extraterrestrial person thing, whatever, this entity. So this entity took over this woman and made her pregnant, and then was conceived. She conceived this being, and this being was somehow disconnected from the parent, the father parent, off on the earth. So it didn't have any earthly father. It was another father, was like an alien, or alien, and the alien wanted to make a human alien hybrid, and so it inseminated a woman uh, without a human male. It was something else. So, and then this person was walking around on the earth, and it was, as a child, it was super intelligent. It not understood the whole of all the scriptures that were already written. It could get up and on a podium and and it would, the person would like be able to recall word for word all the scrolls, all the writing in the scrolls. He could just like stand up there and talk and tell about all the writing in the scrolls. And then he was like talking to these rabbis, right? These old guys, about what was written on the scrolls in the record of time. So then they were like, they went to a wedding, and they turned just ordinary water that someone drew out of a well. They turned that water into wine. And then they were like walking down the street, and a blind guy came up, and he couldn't see, and then he took mud and spit on it and rubbed it in his eyes, and he could see again. And there's a story, all these stories about this magic person. There's all these stories written about the magic person that was his dad he lived in the sky, and his mother was and he would explain himself as if he was that dad in the sky. He would explain to be as if he was channeling a higher being of some kind. So then that higher being, that was the one that was the progenitor of all mankind, of everyone, the originator of the human race, that person, male, of course, was thought to reside past or beyond or superseded, or but was working through the like channeling. The guy was channeling his dad. So then he was able to do like walk on water, and then take fishes and loaves and make them multiply and feed thousands of people from just a few morsels of food. And these stories are written down, and he had wise sayings, about what the afterlife was going to be. How people were going to be they were going to either go to one place or another place in an afterlife. They're going to be judged, and their soul, their soul will come back will be re-resurrected. They'll come back, and they're going to be judged. And then there's other stories about guys that were able to heal people, and he got healed, and there was someone rose from the dead. He was given power somehow to make someone come back from the dead, and he himself was like tortured for 3 days, and then was tortured on a cross, and outside of the gates of the city. And then when they buried him, he was in the ground in a tomb, and then like 3 days later it was empty. So and then he was seen walking around talking to his friends, and appeared to them, and then eventually flew off into the sky. And then shortly thereafter, some time went by, and then there was a promise given by this person that left the earth, that he would send back this power, and the power would give them the ability to like work miracles and do healing, and be able to talk in other languages. And so they waited and waited and waited and waited and waited, and they formed a community. The people that were left, that were the believers of this wandering a prophet from Galilee or Nazareth, and then there's all of this attention and given to that story. It's like so overemphasized in our culture. When it, to me, I just look at it like stories, like you go to see a movie and they exaggerate things. They, story, they want to make a story interesting so people listen to it. It has to be involving, and you can take an existing character that wasn't, maybe they were extraordinary person. Maybe they had a lot of charisma. They were able to draw people to them and make them they were well liked, and they were eloquent. They were interesting. There was an interesting person, and they would hang around them just to hear what he had to say. And after this person passed away, other things were attributed to this person, but it was made up. It was like somebody made up, oh, this person was doing this and this and this, but it was somebody else, but they just put that event and they just transposed it and they combined it into one person. So that may have been the Gospels might be just a compilation. There might be more than one Messiah at the time. There could have been stories could have been written about several different people at different times. And it was just like, you hear stories of the Old West. There's a town, and there's a church with the preacher, and then there's a storekeeper, and then there's the barkeep, and then there's the guy that plays the piano, and the girl that dances, and then there's the gunslinger, and then there's the sheriff, and it's the same. It's like that kind of. It's like a story, right? It's written, and then. Yeah, but if you take it, there really isn't any sky daddy. There's no I. There's no I here. There's no being that's floating around everywhere that's looking at you and analyzing you. That's just your own psyche. That's in your own head. So all the gods and the goddesses, they're projections of our own imagination. They're just fulfillments of a need for us, because life is too amazingly, awesomely awesome and scary. And we invented a parent because we couldn't, it was too much for us to handle. Really understanding reality is too overwhelming and too vast it's too great of an intellectual a gauntlet to analyze, that if you try to really understand what we are and how we got here and where we're going and everything about life and what life is, it paints a pretty bleak picture about there being any happily ever afters. Whereas you're taught to, the stories always begins with the once upon a time and it ends with the happily ever after. We'll go off into the sunset. Everything's good and everything works out and it's all okay in the end. But reality it isn't that way. Everybody really die. We all die. Most of us die like probably alone, in pain, and we're scared. And there's no one around that's holding our hand, that's taking care of us, that's giving us any comfort or care. We're just dying, and we're leaving this. We're shuffling off our mortal coil, and we're all alone. So that's the other thing, is that you bring somebody here in this life, and 99, I'd say for myself personally, 99% of my life is just very superficial. That it's just that very, very rare moment in time where you connect with another human being on a very deep level, and they see you and you see them, and you have a very deep relationship and a really long, lengthy conversation with that person. It's very satisfying personally. You've opened yourself up to this other person, and they've opened themselves up to you, and you have a connection there. It's like you were a brother and a sister. You were not that, but intimate enough to be comfortable enough with each other to want to be intimate. And love will always be love. I mean, that will always be there, but it's just bringing about another person because of that, causing someone else to come into existence. So it's sexual relations are good, and healthy. And if a man can have more than one woman, if he's capable of that, and if he wants to try, if a man and a woman, they want to try different people and have intercourse with different people, that's like great. More, go for it, more, have at it. But the thing is, this is like, don't bring anybody here. Don't cause any new people to come into existence. That's because I think I wouldn't want to put my life, that's experiences I've had in my life, and I've had a pretty good life compared to most people. I had a really good time in my childhood, lots of times. I'm not complaining about that. It was like shitty for me. The shitty things for me was like the world getting nuked, the Russians attacking us, and we're attacking the Russians, or China launching missiles at us, we're launching missiles, and we're fighting in Vietnam, and I'm going to have to go and be drafted, and seeing people in my neighborhood, kids go crazy out on the street and drunk, and they get drafted, and there's like funerals, and they're bringing bodies home from the war, and they're burying the soldiers in the cemeteries. All the funerals, there's all these funerals happening, cars driving with their lights on slow to the cemeteries. And yeah, you want to bring somebody else here. You want to bring somebody else into this long, gloomy, lonely charade of the same thing: waking up, eating a meal, going, taking a shower, going to a job, working a job all day, coming home, going to sleep, getting up the next day and doing the same thing all over again, over and over and over again, and not having any joy in their life. They're all frustrated because at one time they were in their youth, they had talent, and they had a hope that they would be able to use their talents, and they would be able to develop themselves enough to be a successful person, to be happy, and to be do very good in the business or in whatever endeavors they chose to pursue. They would do well in that. They would be uninhibited and excel in what they're trying to achieve as a person. But instead, they're all tied down with bills, and they have a responsibility to a partner, and that they married, that has lots of problems, and they're having to deal with that every day. And any joy or any like fun times or any good times that they had or have or that are having or done are very, very far and few between. And you can't move on. There's no go back to college and get a degree and upgrade your skills and all that, because by the time you're like the age I'm at, you're tired of all that. You want to hand it over to somebody else to do, to make it better. You're running with this baton in a race. Every day you go to work and you have this baton and you're running with it in a race and a race and a race, around and around and around a track. And every day you get up and you go and you race around this track with the baton. Well, it's time to pass that on to some other working at. You feel like you're looked on as senior or somebody that's older, and I'm tired. I'm tired of working. I'm tired of working for anybody. So you try to be pinch pennies, right? I mean, I regret that I wasted a lot of time and money. I should say the two are interchangeable, really. Your time and money are the same thing, because it took your life took parts of your time living in your life to accumulate that money that you saved up. It might be an asset, it might be property, it might be some stocks or bonds, or it might be real estate, or it might be just some old coins or something you have saved up that for me, it was I just can't save cash. I just had so much problems. I would try to save cash. It would just fall through my hands. Just like as soon as I get it, I'd be like gone because I would have other bills I would have to pay. And knowing that I'd always have bills that I'd have to pay, that I'd always have to pay for a place to live, for a house, or for an apartment, and I'd have to. I wouldn't expect there to be any government money, right? It was like the last thing on my mind was to rely on that. The first thing I had to do as a worker was like realize right soon, real quick, to just start saving for my retirement early and not just spend money on frivolous things on vacations or like dumb things, buying useless things that I just don't use or throw away or um, and not taking care of my health too. So if you like, you don't brush your teeth or you eat too many sweets, you don't keep your mouth clean, then you get cavities. You got to go to the dentist and have your teeth drilled. And it's really uncomfortable and unpleasant to have your mouth worked on. Like I got teeth all up here and down here that have the amalgam in the teeth from them being drilled, and then they push the amalgam into the tooth where the hole was. And taking care of my health, yeah, and smoking cigarettes. That was probably the stupidest thing I ever did, was start smoking cigarettes. And also, people around me would encourage me to drink a lot of alcohol. So when I was younger, I wanted to be in the crowd. I wanted to be part of the group. I wanted to not miss out. So I would find where everyone was hanging out, where the parties were at, and if there was everybody was pitching their money together to buy a keg, or we'd all go to the liquor store and we'd buy our own. Someone older would buy us beer and wine and mostly beer and wine. Between 16 and 17, there was like parties that went on in places where there weren't any, it was unsupervised. So drinking, we got away with drinking alcohol when we were younger. And that's something else I regret. People say, oh, I have nothing to regret. Everything I did was perfect. I was a perfect person. And well, yeah, maybe you were. So, but in my case, there was like I fell into the wrong crowd, and I was like influenced. I was susceptible to not have sales resistance. So I was like a gullible kid. The other thing and all these things potentially, and if you don't have the right guidance, if you're not getting a good counselor, if there isn't an adult nearby or around you that helps you in your career path, that gives you encouragement and training and direction to go into in the business world, and how to adapt to making an income for yourself and having enough to where you just don't live paycheck to paycheck, but you're taking any surplus amount that you have that you're not spending to survive on groceries and insurance and paying your rent or maintaining your vehicle and being legal with everything and having a good life and being healthy and eating good, but being frugal enough to take really good care of your health, get a lot of exercise, and be really penny conscious, be thrifty. Like never buy anything new. Always buy from garage sales, or thrift stores. Never spend more than you can know you'll have. If you don't spend all the total, max yourself out on your monthly income, but always maintain a cushion of extra resources that you can put away. And in the future, when you're older and you're like not as sharp and not as quick and strong and fast, and as good as other younger people that you're on the job with, that you're working with, that you can have resources enough to where one day you can just say, I'm leaving. I've had enough of this job. I have enough saved up, personally saved away, that you don't have to answer. Now I don't have to answer to a boss. I don't have to answer to an employer. I'm a free person to do what I want to do with my life. I get up in the morning and I get out of bed when I want to get out of bed. I eat when I want to eat. I if I want to have leisure time and I want to read books, or I want to watch a movie, or I want to get on the internet, or do pursue a hobby, um, I'm not constantly under the thumb of having the duties to have obligation to perform duties and restrict my use of time, and be only specifically doing that one thing for that length of time and the same thing every day. So where I'm wearing myself out doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And it's time for like recreation. It's time to get out and do like gardening, and get out and maybe start walking more around outside, and get out in the outdoors more. Ride my bike, get a bike and ride it around, or um, take the time to see the countryside, walking, hiking around. And you're not able to do that, right? Because you're working all the time. It's like now when you're all done and you're ready to retire, you're so worn out that it's hard to enjoy even the little savings that you have. That you have a meager amount that you can pay your utilities, and you can buy groceries and fix your car and keep roof over your head, that you have barely enough to scrape by to just do that, barely enough to do that for like until you're like 89, 90 years old. By the time you're 89, 90 years old, by then you've run out of money a long time ago. You're living off like the government check, right? And like in my family, like my grandfather lived to be 86, and then my grandmother, she lived to be in her late 90s. So it's like I've got that gene that, gee, I better, if I'm going to be here a long time, if I'm going to be here another 25, 30 years, then I need to take certain measures. I need to think about like saving and how my savings are going to do in a savings account, and have it set aside to where there's going to be enough to live off of in the future, that I'll be able to maintain a vehicle, keep a roof over my head, and buy groceries, and maintain my health, grow old and peaceful and nice. But this, when I see my grandparents and my own parents and what they're going through in their elder years, what's happening to them, that's taking them out of this equation here, that's like not giving me a warm and a fuzzy feeling. I feel like that's scary. I feel like looking forward. Why would you looking forward to being old? All these horrible things start happening to you. Lose your memories and lose your mind. You're like get really sick. You can't get out of bed. You're like getting aches and pains, and can't do anything anymore. You have to have people have to help you, and you end up dying drooling in the bed in a nursing home, and suffocating in vomit, or forgotten. No family, nobody ever visits you and your family or anything. You're left all alone in an old place, in some place that you never wanted to be there anyways, and people around you don't like you, or you don't have anything in common with them, and there's not a lot of it's not real friendly camaraderie with the other older people there. They're all real sick and they don't want to do anything or talk or anything. So you'd end up dying alone and forgotten in a nursing home. Why do you want to force somebody to have to go through all that? Because you make a baby, you're going to force somebody to have to come here to do all that. It's not going to be, there's not going to be this great city on the hill. There's not going to be this fabulously fantastic future where everybody's immortal and they never suffer and again, and the world's going to be all perfect. It'll be perfect virtual reality. Our computer, we'll all be upload ourselves into a computer simulated world, and but that's all fantasy. That's like science fiction fantasy. That's wishful thinking. That's like it's never gonna. That will never happen. As much as these science fiction writers, there's they write about voyaging around in a starship, right, out way out in space, and they have all this super fantastic technology where they have replicators and they have like um, a really, really, really good understanding of material sciences, and they have their knowledge of physics and optics and electronics is really advanced, and they have a ship that can be it uses force fields and it has the transporters and the engines can make it go lights above the more faster than the speed of light. They can send signals radio. They can send signals in radio at faster than light speeds too. That's another thing. And they're able to live out in space and on a big ship. And they make artificial gravity. Somehow the ship has gravity on it. And people never go to the bathroom. I notice that they never shit or piss on the science fiction shows. It's septic. It's like it's been made for TV. Is that way. They don't want to offend anybody. They don't want to show a toilet or discuss anything that has to do with that in that regard. I mean, yeah. It all boils down to like you're here and you're having to go through like horrible things are happening to people that you care about and you love in your life. You've had experiences. You've lost pets. You've had pets and then you've lost pets. You see the delusions, of wanting to become aspiring to become great or aspiring and like having and it never happens. You have goals and aspirations, and they get squashed. And and crying. When and most of the time, I find my life has been alone. I'm alone most of the time. If there's interaction with people, like just friends, neighbors, people around me, and associates I've had at my job or people I've known, and family too. If there's interaction, it's on a very shallow level. It never goes very deep, very rarely is there any very very deep or meaningful conversation. Mostly it's just, oh, how you doing? I'm doing fine. And, oh yeah, you get out, get to the game, or how'd your fishing trip go? Was it like you have camping? Yes, you got camping gear. Yeah, you have a good time there, and everything's always about. Nothing's ever really about further than the weather or what's happening with you in your normal routine that they know of. So they're suffering too. They're suffering when you connect with a person and then they either leave you or they die. So you built up a relationship with a person in your life that you become acquainted with, and you're comfortable being around that person. You share you spend investing a lot of your time, personal time, into having interactions with that person, and then they die. And they leave you here all alone. They leave you here alone because they're no longer that part of you that's all set up to be able to have conversations with them. In your mind, that person's gone, so that the ties have been cut from you to that other person. Now they've left you here all alone. And you're having to suffer. That's a kind of suffering. It's existential suffering. It's like grieving the loss of a pet or a loved one, missing that person. And when they're no longer here, you're thinking about them. thinking about how great times you had with them, and how much of a person they were. That was fun and so good feelings to be with that person, and then they're gone. In relationships too, man and a woman could meet and be very attracted to each other when they're younger, and then as they get older, they have children together, and then they lose interest in each other. They no longer have any kind of sexual feelings for each other. There's no longer any kissing or hugging or any like warm, affectionate embraces. And the person that you thought you loved is like, that person is a different person. It's changed, and you separate, and there's pain and suffering there. And then you have to separate, and then there's who gets to have custody of the children, and then you get sick, right? And you get these horrible sicknesses, and then you go to the hospital, and like if you have to go to the emergency room, you're going to spend at least $10,000 if you're having to spend one night overnight because you go to the emergency room. It's going to be at least $10,000 in the United States average if you pay out of pocket. So, but the medical insurance, yeah, it should be, there should be different tiers of medical insurance. Like there should be like tier 1 is everybody has it, and that's medicine that's for like public safety, a public education for health and well-being. Like you need that to get a GED in high school. In order to graduate from high school, you need to have basic health, like sexual health, and knowing basic um, hygiene and preventative medicine, and how to stay fit and healthy, and physical exercise, calisthenics should be taught in schools. And when I was in high school, I hated gym class. It was just, oh my God, it's such a hassle. You got to get changed, and then you're all sweaty, and you're having to shower in front of other guys in a shower. And it was like I never felt comfortable as an adolescent boy. I never felt comfortable taking showers in the boys' shower in high school. So it affected my score on my gym peaks. When I took PE classes, they gave me a low grade because I didn't dress. I just kept my street clothes on, but I didn't get in the shorts and the shirt and tennis shoes and work out and do the exercises that either playing basketball, playing touch football, or dodgeball, or tennis, and they had racquetball too, I think. And but looking back in retrospect, that was a good thing that they did that. They made physical education mandatory, and you had to have at least an hour of it once a day as part of your curriculum in the school. And now I look back on it, and it was like that was a really good thing that they did that. I was like that. I should have been more like appreciative of that. That I should have been more active in that, and gotten a better grade in PE class. It should have been something that I was like. But it was like I didn't feel comfortable being nude in a shower with other boys my age. It was just that part of me was like I didn't want to get stripped down and go into a shower. And if I was like all sweaty, then the best thing in now that I think back on it, if I could go back in time and I could change anything in the high school, it would be to take the PE class, be the last class of the day. And that way I could get all sweaty and get a workout and then go home and take a shower. But I never thought to ask about that because there was no counselor there that, a child needs to be helped to make decisions. The child needs to be, some adult needs to be there to give the child guidance in their career choices, and making the student, the youngster, know what advantages there are to school and getting the grades, what that will bring about in the future for them, making them aware of that. Their future may depend upon their grades that they get. If they get good grades, they can transfer their knowledge and grading. They can transfer that knowledge to a university. And then once they're at the university, they can specialize. They can become a specialist in one area, be really good at that. But in order to get to that point in a career, you need the basics, the reading and writing and arithmetic, and you need that guidance, health education, and physical education too. So if you could take some, and civics, if you don't know about civics and the law and that, you're going to have trouble too later on. Then that way, if you know civics and you're good at understanding the society and politics, then you'll do well in business too. But I looked at kids that their parents were grooming them to take over what they were going to do, what they were doing, and I envied those kids. I envied, like, their father was training them to be good at what they were doing, and they were like working with the dad in the business and being part of the business, and their businesses, then the business gets passed on to them. And I envied that. I was like kind of mad at my own dad. Like, how come you're not in business for yourself? Why do you have to go and answer and kowtow to some boss, some official person that's over you, overseeing you, and determining your fate, telling you what you should do or what you can do and what you can't do every day, day after day after day. You have freedom, no flexibility. You have very little leeway in using your creative potential, using your talents at that job. You're just shoved into this boring, routine, mundane, just grueling tasks, the same thing over and over and over again, repeating the same thing over and over again, and always being marginalized and left out of the decision-making process. So even though you're really good and you're really understanding and know about how to do your job really well, there's always the boss that's just going to decide things over your head with behind closed doors that affect you, that you have no control over. And then the decisions are made, and then all of a sudden it hits you that you weren't involved in the decisions. You were left out. There was never any consultation. There was considering your wisdom and your knowledge and your skills from doing this job all the time, day after day after day. And you're passed over. There's no recognition there. So that's another form of suffering. It's a form of suffering that you get looked down upon by your peers. You're where you work at, or you're like not respected because you're like seen as maybe incompetent or not as well trained, or you're not as well versed in academia. Or you lack the speech or lack the ability to communicate sufficiently enough to where your voice is heard and you're given recognition, and people take your ideas seriously, and you make a difference in what you're doing, and you're just not a cog in the mesh of gears. You're just not being told what to do all the time, and you're never having any say so on how you're doing and what you're doing. And there's no reward. There's no personal reward if you had a job and you hate it. You're just there to make money to live. That sucks. And why do you want to bring somebody here to have to go through that? Why do you want to force another person here? And when you force them here, they're going to get old, they're going to grow up, and they're going to be stuck. They're going to be stuck in that situation on the job. You're going to be an employee at a company. They're going to be a worker. And you're forcing somebody to be here, and that's all. They're going to grow up and they're going to have to do that, just what you're doing. And that's why I'm saying, why bring somebody here? And if you have this, like, urge, right? To like you think you're so special and your greatness and your glory or your genes, right? Your body and and if you think that you can guarantee when you bring somebody here that they're going to have this better life than you had, that's a delusion. You don't know the future. The chances are the future is not is bleak. Is the outlook of the future looks like more 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 weather that's really bad, that's hurricanes and droughts and more flooding and more uh, everything getting more expensive and getting crowded everywhere. There's more and more people, so there's every that all the and then watching what you love and care about, like the natural world, like watching all the different varieties of different animal species, and the insects, and the different birds and reptiles, and all the other mammals on the planet. You watch them, and you see them going extinct. You see them with your own eyes, other living things dying off, and it's happening in your lifetime. And it sucks. It's like why isn't it like that everything's getting better all the time? Shouldn't it be like when you go to Disneyland, they make it like Disneyland in the future world is a better world than the other sections of the theme park. So you have the western section of the theme park, you got a jungle section of the theme park, you got a New Orleans section of the theme park, and then there's a street, and there's little shops, and there's places where there's arcade games, and there's different rides to go on, and cotton candy, and different events, and shows that are happening, and amusements. And you're as this kid, and you're walking around the theme park, and you're thinking that the future is like you're going to be everything's going to be better in the future. That the roads will be built better. That water will be that food will be less expensive. That the quality of living will become more and more better for people as time progresses. They'll have a better place to live. There'll be more opportunities. There, the poverty will go away. There won't be any more poor people. Everybody will be middle class or up. They'll have robots that will do all the menial work, all the tedious work, just the dangerous work, the jobs that no one wants to do. They'll have robots do all that work, and the buildings will be maintained by the robots, and everything. All the food will be grown by the robots. The transport mechanisms, and all the shipping, and the preparation, and the processing, and the packaging, and the disposal, and everything. All the whole infrastructure of all the system of society, of all everything we depend on, will be labor free. It will be everybody will be have leisure time because everything will be done by robots. So then at that point in time, they'll have what's called universal basic income. But is it really? Do you people out there? Do you really see that happening? Maybe some of you people that are really super religious, and you're like you really believe that like God is telling you to have all these kids, to have really big families and have all these kids. You believe that there's a God somewhere, and that God's plan is that for you to have all these kids. And somehow in the future, those kids, their kids, and then those kids will have kids, and then those kids will have kids, and then those kids will have kids, and those kids will have kids, they'll have kids, the kids, and on and on and on and on and on up, and indefinitely there will be always someone there having a kid. So why? To what end? What is it? Where is that going? What's the purpose of that? I used to go party with my buddies there in high school and get drunk, and I get mad, and I get up and I'd start getting mad about what's this purpose of life, right? Why are we here? I'd ask that question, why? Why are we here? And I get mad because everybody would tell me to shut up, right? We're having a good time. We're drinking. We're getting a buzz on, whatever. We're playing cards, or we're listening to music, or we're driving in a car. Nobody wants to hear you droning on about why you exist. You're asking everybody in this you're drunk and you're getting mad, flustered that no one wants to talk about why they think they exist. And to the people that I knew that had a lot of science training and not training by nuns at the Catholic school, they actually went to a public school and had learned how to use a microscope, learned about chemistry, learned how to handle chemicals, learned about the natural world, had a lot of biology classes in biology, and they had classes in ecology, and learned about the different flora and fauna, learning about taxonomy and learned archaeology and learned about anthropology, and had all the secular training and education, the history, ancient history, and early evolutionary development, understanding evolutionary process, being taught that as a young child. But I never got that. I got okay, Jesus rose from the dead, and today we're celebrating the Mass of the Eucharist. It's where the priest was turning the bread into the body of Christ, and the chalice is raised, and the bells ring, and then the incense is burned, and the priest changes the wine into the blood of Jesus. And you take the host of the bread and you take the chalice of the wine and keep it in a separate little space on the altar in the church. And then whenever you enter the church, you acknowledge the presence of God in the loaf, in the pieces of bread, and in the wine there. So God, the body and blood of Jesus. It's serious. No, this is really serious. That you must believe that piece of bread turns into the real flesh of a man, and that the wine is changed into real blood. And that's literally. And and the other things, the sacraments, right? You had the sacrament. I remember specifically the sacrament of confession. So you go to confession, and what it is, you go inside of the church, and there's these little booths, and there's a center booth, and then there's two booths on the side, and you go in, and there's a light, and then when you kneel down, the light goes off, and the priest raises a screen, and you're anonymous. They can hear your voice. It's kind of bullshit, but they know who you are, really. I mean, you can figure it out. But it's supposed to be, you go in there as an anonymous. What you say in there stays in there. It's supposed to be that. There's never any communication about what was discussed between the priest and the person in the confessional. So it's private. It was and you told the priest anything that was that you did that was you broke a rule, you broke a law, or you were misbehaved, or you did something bad, or hurt somebody, or did something, stole, or whatever crime, or whatever. If you were looking at dirty magazines and you were jerking off, or you were you stole candy from the store, or you were drinking your dad's liquor out of the liquor cabinet, or you were you broke into somebody's locker, car, whatever, you took something, or you were a brat, you did something wrong, you tell the priest that. And then but you're supposed to be telling that priest as if you were to tell that to God, right? The priest is an in-between person, the middleman between you and God. The priest is there. The priest is there as an intermediary and advisor. But the odd thing was it was almost there was almost too much. Okay, well, I got very explicit in my sexual preferences when I went to confession. I would spell out. I would talk in graphic detail about my sexual escapades to the priest, and because that was the only thing that was the only thing they would think. Yeah, what is he doing wrong? What's his sin, right? How am I sinning, right? Because I didn't steal, because I felt like that was stupid, because I didn't want anyone to steal from me. And I didn't hold the grudges. I'd forgive people really easily. I wouldn't and and I wouldn't have. I try not to have any enemies. I would like look and try to work things out. If there was tension between me and someone else, I would always try to reconcile what was going on that was causing that, and or try to be just stay away from that person. That was. But why do you want to, and you bring somebody here and they have to go through all that. They have to go through the school, and think about suffering that happens in school from a kid. A kid has to grow up and go and be around all these other kids and get bullied, get pushed around, get his feelings hurt, and get and not have opportunities. Maybe he's sick and maybe he's in the hospital a lot. He's a doctor's has to go to the doctor all the time. He's like in a chronic condition. He can't play ball. He can't do the things that other kids do. And there's always that chance that happens. There's always a chance that you may have it really good, right? Let's just say you have a lot of money, you're real healthy, you have a very beautiful wife that's very intelligent, and you're both college educated, very intelligent people, and you have a lot of money, and you have resources available to you for to get your children trained at the best schools, and you have high standards for health and fitness, and you have a history in your family of all your ancestors and your relatives living to be really old people and to stay healthy for a long time and to have a nice peaceful deaths in their sleep. And you've had a very fortunate life where you've never known anybody personally to suffer. All the people that you know, everyone in your family, all your friends, all your acquaintances, everybody that you deal with on a day-to-day basis you've never witnessed their suffering. You've never had to know of someone else that you cared about suffer. And all you see your entire life, you see the entire course of a human life as being all pleasant and happy and joyful and something that should be relished and like that, and have gratitude towards the great someone somewhere out there somewhere, right? Is going to be like looking out for you, like making sure, everything's going to work out for you. Everything's fine. You're going to be happily ever after. But it's not that way. The mythology of the modern world, of our culture and society, paints a rosy picture, too Pollyanna-ish about the world. The world is portrayed as a Pollyanna-ish place that's all happy and fun and Disneyland and fun times and birthday cakes and parties and balloons and games and fun adventures and nothing ever bad happening. There's never a toilet shown. Very rarely somebody's really sick, and everyone's always healthy. Everyone, and they win in the end. There's always a good end. The movie's always ending in a good movie. They go off in the sunset, but it's not that way. That's a lie. And to see through that early, and to see through that today is anti-natalism. Anti-natalism sees that this process of being a human being here is just going nowhere. What will become of everyone in the future? We will all be a layer in sandstone on the side of a mountain. Will be a layer of plastic and metal and ceramic. There'll be a layer of radiation. That's all that will become of us. It will be gone and forgotten, and everything will be gone. And eventually, the earth will be turned into a cinder. The oceans will boil away. Everything will be molten, and the sun will nova, and there won't be a happily ever after. There won't be a Starship Enterprise that's speeding its light above the speed of light, that has super transporters, and that people have machine body interfaces, that everything's like in a perfect community and utopia is happening. It will, like, what are these people in the future? What are they going to be doing, right? They're still going to be stuck as a person having to live a life. It won't be like everything will be always. how can you be so sure, right, that everything's going to be so perfect in the future, that this future that everything's heading towards is worth it? You know, how can you be sure, right? I can't read from far away. I'm sorry if I'm not responding. Um, yeah, where is this? But the thing about the plan, right, of the gods, if you research the history of our literature and our way human beings, we've told stories in the past. We make up things. You know, they make up that there's dragons and that there's wizards, there's magic, there's a all powerful being out in the up in the sky that's thunder and lightning. And so religion, even though people say I'm not religious or I'm atheist, they're still like believing their DNA has a religious significance. They think the DNA in their body is somehow, it has to get through, it has to get to the future, their DNA. Or the DNA somehow has intrinsically in it, within itself, a will to always exist. And that we're just a tool. Our bodies are just an instrument or a vehicle for that DNA to get transferred into the future. It's a mission. I'm on a mission, and the God is nature, and my DNA is like the God of the DNA of the nature DNA, so it must continue on indefinitely into the future. And then like always, there will always be somebody here and has that DNA. They have to live a whole life and then pass it on. Somebody else new comes about, lives their whole life and passes it on. They die, and they new child's born, and then there's another death, and then another child's born, and indefinitely. Where does it end? What's the end goal of all of that? Why in its conspiracy of everybody knows, somehow everybody has the knowledge of that, of why they're here, and they're not letting anyone else know it. There's like a conspiracy to keep that hidden from you. There's a conspiracy against you knowing too much. And that if you're too informed about really what's happening in the universe, who you really are in relation to the universe, if you really have a complete understanding of that, you're a threat to the status quo. So somehow all the sociopaths out there, all the psychopaths that are trying to be on this one-upmanship game of being on the top, getting to the top, being the number one, and conquering everyone else. It brings to mind a painting I saw of a warrior from like the Middle Ages standing on top of a pile of skulls with a sword, holding the sword up while he's standing on top of a pile of skulls. It's like, is that what everything is? The DNA is like that. The DNA is trying to get to that one guy holding the sword up. He's the one holding the sword up. He's the one. In the end, there can only be one. Like, and to me, it's like, that's stupid. Like, right? I mean, the other thing that seems stupid is that and it's been discussed quite at length by a gentleman on a channel. It's called Natural Philosophy. I think his name is Theodore, and he talks about there is no life after death. There is life after death, but it's not you. See, it's another. That as soon as you die, then you're not there to experience your non-existence, and then a new person's born, and they're brand new, and they are not you, but they are like you. But if that's, how can you? Is it generic? That's what consciousness is. Generic is that we all share a sense of ourselves that's similar to everybody else. Human, other animal life, like elephants or chimps or or other kinds of animals experience the sentience of their own self-awareness. That's generic, that experience. So experientially, it's a reset. When you die, the universe is you're reset, rebooted as a brand new person again. But it's not the you that you are now, but it is a you. It's similar to the you are now, but it's in the future. And all these people walking around and that are alive in the world today, their genes will be in 120 years, plus or minus, or whatever length of time, more likely between 70 and 120 years. That period of time, they're a unique person. There's that one of a kind that will never, never, ever, ever, ever be another you that's exactly like the you that you are now. And when the physicists and the mathematicians speculate about there being an infinite number of possible permutations of the universe, if the Big Bang had been just a little bit different, if all of the subatomic particles had been arranged in a different configuration of even a slight amount, then the Big Bang would have initialized, and everything up to this point would have been entirely different. There could be most universes could come and go, and there never is intelligent life or sentient life in those universes. So there's no one there that knows sound. There's no one that can experience light, that senses color, perceptions of any kind, that has no sense of themselves. So during those physical events, it doesn't mean those events don't exist. They still exist and they're real. There's just no one there that experiences those events as they're transpiring. So the argument is, you're finite. Your brain is a finite mechanical system that has a beginning. You're born, and it has an end, and it's unique in its structure, in its form, in its time that it came about, and the relation to it in its environment from where it emerged from is a one of a kind event. It's a fluke of only once, that will ever only happen once, and there really is only one universe. There's no multiverse. There's no other dimensions. There's only this one universe that we know had a beginning, and it's moving forward in time. Entropy it's everything's slowly, the heat is becoming less and less and less heat, and it's becoming more even temperature everywhere. Eventually, it will just be stars, and the planets will be vaporized, and then there'll be bigger stars, and the stars will absorb all the materials, and then those stars will become gigantic stars, and eventually those will form super dense ashes, remnants of themselves, and all the material that made up the gases and all the elements will become so spread apart, they'll become so diffuse and unamalgamated and homogeneous that it'll return back to the quantum soup, or the foam, the subnucleated foam of the universe with initial condition that's the same as it started in. So it'll repeat. But that's just a theory. All we know is there was this one event, and now we're here in this one universe. That's the only one that exists. Well, they'll point the space telescope at a vacant area in the sky that's as small as a postage stamp, held at arm's length, that once it resolves galaxies, other thousands and thousands of galaxies that are billions of light years away, that the telescope can resolve in areas of the sky that seem to the unaided eye that there was nothing there at all. But outside of the disk of our own galaxy, pointing our space telescope into the vacant voids of space, the background is all these galaxies, billions and billions and billions and billions of other galaxies. They categorize our own galaxy as being part of another group of galaxies, and that group is part of another bigger group, and those are all embedded in another larger group or a system of galaxies of webbing. It looks like the shape of soap bubbles meeting, joining together in space. So, and then the further back in time you go in the photography, they see further back in time. They don't see what's happening right now. They only see what happened billions of years ago. So the images from the Hubble Deep Field, those images happened billions of years ago, and it's taken like when people would look and they would think that that's the way it is right now. They would assume that, oh, that must be the way it is now. A telescope took that picture, and but it's, yeah, and that frame of your mind, right? And you're part of all this. I mean, all the matter, all the energy and matter that make up your body at one point in time was all in a hot big bang, in a dense, super heated dense plasma cloud that burst forth almost instantaneously from nowhere, out of nothing. It superheated, congealed into the atomic forms, and those atomic forms congealed and formed into heavier bits that drew those bits together in spheres, and then those spheres, they blew up and blew out matter and compressed the matter into the gas and made denser and denser atoms, and those atoms eventually formed the planets, and then we came about. From evolution appeared from it just it had the right chemistry. There was the right amount of water. There was the right amount of carbon. There was just the right amount of nitrogen. It was all the gravity was just that right amount of gravity. The atmosphere contained those proportions of gases and those amounts, and the minerals and the quantity of the minerals and the quantity of the liquid water on the surface of the planet, and the temperature range variations and the seasonal changes of the moon causing the tides made it a specifically unique world that will never ever be another world exactly like this world. It's one of a kind. It's the only one that we know of, and that is final, and that's a fact. That's to go beyond the facts and speculate is it's not good science to do that. Good science is I understand good science to be only accepting facts and not extending your imagination past what you know to be any facts. Because as soon as you start imagining or speculating, and you're leaving the critical thinking behind. And critical thinking is like you're skeptical, but you're not so skeptical that, well, to me, I watch, I see the Anti-natalist, right? I watch her. I watch Flyora. I watch her videos. I watch Foreverwolfilms, her videos, and I see videos from the anti-natalist community, and I listen to them, exactly what they're saying, and I try to understand the anti-natalist position, and I go like that, and I go, why isn't that so clear to people? Why can't they see this? What these people are talking about totally makes sense to me. It does. That is better to never have been. It doesn't make it. It doesn't help that we don't have any. There is nothing that we're going towards. There's no reason. We're really no reason for us to be here. We just are here, and then we suffer and we die. There's no goals. There's no grand. There's no fun Disneyland theme park that we're all going to go to after this is over. To me, it's more like you wake up gradually, which you do as a baby, because when you're a little tiny infant, you're sleeping most of the time. So the way I see it is, as you're developing, and then from an infant to a toddler to a young youth to an adolescent, that all of the experiences and those for what it adds up to and what it all amounts to just end up as being a layer in sandstone or a layer between granite and shale in all you ever have and all you ever were and everything you knew and everybody you knew and all the places you knew and everything you've ever owned and all that ends up just decaying and turning into dust and disappearing forever. And you wonder, what's it all for? Why are we bringing in new people here? Why are we keeping this stupid parade going? What's it all for? You don't believe in a God anymore. What's it for? Why are you all happy and cheerful and wonderful and all giddy about life being this grand thing and all being all so great? That's what I don't understand about atheists. They're like so like they nitpick the Christians so much and the Muslims and the people that are really devout religious people. They scrutinize all their beliefs and their holy scriptures and all that, and they totally turn it inside and out. And I go, yes, I give them a golf clap. That's good. Yeah, they're understanding that it's just a myth, and people are taking it like it's something that's a real body and blood of Jesus. There's an invisible man in the sky and all that. There's a Santa Claus. There's someone that's going to be always there for you. That's has your best interest in mind. That you're going to be given a good place in your next life, and you're going to go pass over, and you're going to see your family, and everything's going to work out. And there's going to be happily ever after. Well, it's not that way. You're atheist, so you see it's just like animals eating other animals. It's like this. It's being alive is torturous, and then most of the people eat animals. Most people eat animal excretions or animals parts, and all the people just they take animals and they breed them and they confine them in cages and then they eat them. And you're living on a world where everybody's doing this, and yeah, you've woken up to like you have such disdain and such like revulsion inside. You're revolted by that, but you're like, when you're around these people, you're like, oh, how's it going? I'm doing okay, blah blah blah, and you're like not uptight. You're not thinking about you're not, and you're not judging people, but you're like thinking in terms of, well, why doesn't everybody really respect the animal as being like, well, it could have just as easily been you coming into existence as an animal. You wouldn't necessarily, the universe wasn't planning on you as being a human being. You could have easily, your consciousness, if it's generic subjective consciousness, is just as real as any other animal form's consciousness. If they have a brain, they have a sentient brain. They're being waking up inside of that animal is just as much the probabilistic odds, the odds and chances of you emerging as a human, that you think you're superior to these other animals. You're over them. You have power over them. You can breed them and keep captive them, and then slaughter them and cook them and eat them, and you feel like that's your God-given right to do that. That your God, which is a male God, it's a brain, it's a bodiless brain, but it has a penis. Okay, it's a spirit, it's a soul thing that's invisible, but it has a penis. So that's another thing about the patriarchal religions. It's always, the God is always referred to as him, as a man, and the man was first, of course, and then the woman came after the man. In the story is all taken literally. That story is embedded in the culture. It's like we are immersed in that, saturated by our mythologies. We're brought up into that, and only the fortunate few that can rise above and see above the maze, as Amendum says. He has a rise and look through, get up above the maze and see the maze. See you're in a maze. That enlightenment, and then that. Knowing that is like dreadful. It's awful. It's horrifying. It's scary. That knowing that you're just like a puppet of the fate. You're a puppet of fate is what we are. We're not. Our destiny's not where we want it to be. Our destiny is the grave. We're all heading to the grave. We're all gonna rot. There's no someone that's gonna stand with a sword on top of all the skulls. I'm the victor. I'm the winner. The one last man that's standing on the earth before the earth is destroyed. At some oblivious moment in the future, the last people or the last person. What will be going through their minds? The same as when they cut down the last palm tree on Easter Island so they could move the stone heads, because the chief wanted a big head. He wanted a bigger, more prominent stone head than the other chiefs. He wanted to be remembered. So forced the people in the island of the silly religious, spending all their time and resources on stupid religion and making a big stone head, putting it and moving it, carving it and moving it, running out of food, cutting down all the trees, not planning for sustainability, but having silly contests about getting eggs from a bird from an island and having the fastest, best swimmers and the best climbers get the egg, which is that movie. It's called it's about Easter Island. I'll just say that it's a fiction, but it's kind of like, yeah, I can see that happening. As they ran out of food and they started to cannibalize each other because there was no animal meat. They ate all animals, and they ran out of food, and they were starving. So they started killing. When someone got killed, they would throw them into a fire. And then, what I don't understand is how they ever managed to live without fire. They must have been at one point, if there was no more trees, there must have been enough driftwood floating around on the seashore that they could gather up driftwood and make a fire out of that. So if Easter Island means anything at all, the Easter Islanders survived because there was fire. And cannibalism is just not exclusive to certain groups of tribal Aboriginal people that in known history. There's probably most of human history. There probably were times in everyone's family line, in their own family history, where there was cannibalism of some kind because people were starving to death. And as sure as it happened in the past, the history will eventually, again, there will come a time in the future, maybe they'll run out of resources, run out of gas, run out of oil, run out of fossil fuels. Everything will go back to wood power again. It'll become like the Old West. People will live like they lived in the Old West, and in chivalry, and there will be like fiefdoms and castles and like the Middle Ages will happen again because there won't be any more technology. The technology will either be a big war or a big famine or a big event happen, and all the knowledge that was learned by the scientists and the physicists and the chemists and all of the engineering works and knowledge of mathematics and high levels of society, and that will break down, and people will revert back to more of a primitive time. I'm sure like religion will become popular again, and they'll have like the Bible, and there'll be like a new Bible, and then there'll be another Middle Ages because there won't be any more. Everything will be horse drawn again, and you're cheering on this parade into the future. You really think that there is some direction, there is some aim, or direction or function or purpose that is eventually going to be implemented that will somehow fulfill something in the whole scheme of the whole universe, that we are a necessary function or feature of the universe, and it's supposed to be maintained into perpetuity to for the species to survive no matter what, at what cost. The species must survive. Now I ask you, where is that? Where is that heading? Seriously, religious, if you're a very religious person, very devout person, and you really believe that, then you go to the doctor when you're sick, right? I mean, you believe that you operate a motor vehicle, you use electronics, you understand the scientific method, and you know about ancient history. Maybe you've taken a lot of geology classes, and you understand about rocks and about minerals and about fossils, and you understand deeply about biology, and you understand how cells divide and what makes mitosis happen, and you understand meiosis, the gamete reproduction of the cells, the gamete cells. And you thoroughly understand biological processes, and you're very astute and knowledgeable about anatomy of different animals. So you understand the way the monkey anatomy is, the skeletal function features, and you have a deep understanding of history and ancient history, and yet you still believe there's a God, there's a magic daddy in the sky, and you probably work for like Sandia Laboratories, or like you work for NASA Goddard, or you're in a high level laboratory, and you're doing like really intense work in physics, and yet you're religious person. So that's like you almost have one part of your brain is compartmentalized. It only is for Sunday and believing in a silly religion, and then the rest of the week when you're at work, you're like really a logical and very scientific person. And I don't understand that. I have relatives that are like that. They're very professional people, and as soon as they're on they're on Facebook, right? And I have more than one account on Facebook. I have to confess that. Many of you probably know that already about me, because I have friends in this account, and then I have in the other account, and I have those same friends in that account. But the thing as I'm trying to do with Facebook, and I've always tried to do this with Facebook, is to keep separate my family and my old neighbors and my old family from my business associates and my work related people I've known on the job, especially people I'm currently employed, where I'm currently employed. I do not want the same Facebook relationship that I'm having with my family and old neighbors and oldest people I used to know, friends. I don't want associations with those people to be associated with the people that I work with. Not because I'm ashamed or anything. It's just that I'm wanting to like focus my attention on certain subject matters that are only specific to the people I'm in those circles of. I'm watching their videos online. I'm interested in those people in their lives in a different way than I am in the people that are my old neighbors and my brothers and sisters and people and my cousins and my family. Just as there's people that I work with, and those people that I'm associated with my job and my business in the business community, those people I don't want to be part of my family and old neighbors, and I don't want those people that I work with to be part of my online community, people that I'm interested in. So I've made it. I have three Facebook accounts. One is my name, my given name and my surname, and that's the one that's like for business, for my work. And then I have the other accounts that I have, and I'm using an alias because I don't want those two accounts to become. I don't want to have my musings and my political ideas and my values and my ideas to be exposed to the people that I work with. I want the people that I work with to not know me in that regard. I would rather have myself be private to the people I work with on a daily basis, and not to have discussions or not expose them to ideas that I have on my circles of people that I associate with or that I'm interested in online. And I'm not interested that those people, I don't want my family, they don't have to know about my personal relationships that I'm having with people online. So it's kind of weird. I don't know how many other people out there are bothered by that on Facebook. Or maybe they're savvy. If you're good enough at using Facebook, you can keep them separated to keep your work contacts separate from your family contacts, separate from your online contacts. It sucks. It sucks because I have been forced to live in an area, in a part of the world where I'm only here in this area geographically because my work is here, because I can make a living here. I would have never chosen, given my own choice of anywhere I could live, if I could live anywhere I'd want to live in the world. This place where I'm living at I would never have chosen that if I was given a choice. The only reason I'm here is because I got hired by a company and I'm living here and I'm working for that company and I have to stay put geographically near where the company is. And I'm not given any choice. And that if I wanted to live somewhere else, then I would have to endure a long commute. It would be a hardship for me. And I did that, and I did that stint. I went that route. I burned out. I snapped. I had a mental breakdown, and I got really drunk, and I embarrassed myself to the neighborhood, and and the law was involved, and I was arrested, and I was very remorseful about that. And I recognized that I had a problem with alcohol, number one, and I shouldn't have been drinking because I was taking the fluoxetine, the serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and drinking alcohol, and like dealing with like having people living in my house that weren't my immediate family, and having a long drive to my job every day to and from my work. I'd spent an hour to 2 hours each way in my car, and I was burning out, and I was like, work was becoming more. They were calling me into the office and questioning my judgment and why I was coming in late and why I wasn't getting things done. I was leaving early in the afternoon and I was coming back, and I wasn't doing my work. I was wasting time, and I was leaving, and I wasn't showing up, and I wasn't coming in on time in the morning, and I was like staying up late at night and sitting in my front yard drinking wine until 2 or 3 in the morning, and then waking up at 7 a.m. and getting in my car and driving 40 miles to my job on rural country roads. And then at night it'd be real late because I'd have to stay at work late, and the blinding headlights would be coming at me from the 2-lane highway, pitch dark road in the mountain, in the countryside, in the middle of the night. And I'd be like, get home, and I'd like crack open a 40 ouncer and drink the whole thing in one sitting within an hour, and and fall asleep and wake up early and do the same thing the next day. And then Friday night, Saturday night, I'd be out having a big bonfire in my yard, drinking, playing my radio loud, bothering the neighbors, and I broke and I snapped, and I was like, you got a problem, young man. You're not able to handle your alcohol. And the people that I knew when I was younger told me that. They'd say, hey, you have a drinking problem. You can't handle your alcohol. You shouldn't drink. Look, put it down. Don't drink. If you're gonna drink beer, and don't drink that much. Just drink 1 or 2 and stop, and call it quits. And that occurred to me. That made sense to me. But there would be a few times where I would either be depressed, or I would be really stressed out, or I would be in a situation where I felt really awkward socially, and I felt more contented and more brave if I had a lot to drink, and then I get along better with everyone else around me, and I have more friends. Because if I stopped drinking, I wouldn't have any friends, and then I'd be alone, and I didn't want to be alone because it was a bummer. And now I'm like, know that, okay, I have allergic reaction. I can't touch this stuff. It's like not for me. It's fine for anybody else. You can have one drink once in a while. You can, even if you can get drunk and never, you can get drunk and you'll never fall down. You'll never embarrass yourself. You'll never get sick. You'll never have a bad hangover. You'll never do poor judgment. You'll always never have a hangover. You get drunk and you'll be happy, and then you'll fall asleep, and you never anything bad will happen. You'll be able to drink for the rest of your life without ever having something bad happen to you while you're drunk, or do something really stupid while you're drunk, or like hurt your health while you're drunk, or hurt your spouse, or be embarrass yourselves, harm your own reputation. If you can drink and be able to put it down and not have any of those problems, that's great. More power to you. That's fine. Then you're a normal person. But people that aren't normal, they 9 times out of 10 they're fine. Everything will be seem like it's okay, that they're dealing with it, they're handling it okay. But it's just that one time out of 10, or one time out of 30, or that one time out of that all those times they're drinking, they're enjoying their alcohol. They get carried away, and that one time they do something stupid. They get in their car and they drive, or they like shout or yell, or they make a fool out of themselves, or they're urinating in public, or they pass out and fall down. And they're laying on the ground somewhere, or on a bench, or on the beach, or they can't drink alcohol. They should, like, if they're a younger person, they're listening to me and they've had that happen to them, the best thing that you can ever do is just never ever drink any alcohol again for the rest of your life. Stop drinking alcohol permanently. Never touch a drop ever again in your life. Don't drink any champagne. Don't drink any beer. Never any little bit of wine. No cough syrup. Nothing. No mouthwash. Nothing with alcohol. Keep alcohol out of your body. And just remember for the rest of your life that you're allergic to it, and if you do drink it, it may be okay at first. You may have a good time. Actually, you may be okay. First couple times you do it, you may be going along, and then all of a sudden that one time, bang! It hits you. You pass out, or you do something stupid, and it's costing you. It's really expensive to your reputation. It's expensive to your finances. It's expensive to your relationship. It's expensive. DUI, hiring a lawyer, going to court, going to counseling, going before the magistrate, the judge, and you're embarrassed, and it's taking you time, and you're like all stressed out about it. It's interfering with your work. Then if you've gone through a horrible thing, or you've had to go to the hospital because you fell down, you hurt yourself, and it was like you were bleeding and you got cut up, or you're in a fight and you're in a hospital, and and now you're all beat up or suffering, or you're all had an accident from being drunk, got too drunk and you had an accident, you fell down. Then you wake up and you realize that, take my advice. Don't Now you just know for a fact that you can never drink any alcohol again forever, for the rest of your life, permanently. Remember that, and always adhere to that. To be true to yourself, that that commitment to yourself, that you know you are allergic to alcohol, that alcohol will hurt you in the future. It will damage you. It's waiting, and it will wait for you in the right moment in the future. That indulgence that you enjoy, that feeling that you're getting, that high you're getting, will turn against you. It will cause you great suffering in your life. Now, if you listen to me and you take my advice, and you think deeply, and you think very strongly, and you make a commitment inside of yourself right now, and you determine that you're never going to touch alcohol again for the rest of your life, and you take my advice, and then that would be like me giving you $1 million cash money right now. If I could reach my hand out in through the screen and hand you $1 million of cash money, and put it in front of you and set it down in front of you, that would be, if you took my advice and you never drank again any alcohol for the rest of your life, that would be the same as me is if you listened to me and you took me seriously and you made that commitment, it would be the same as me giving you a big pile of money. I would save you. I would save you that much in your life. But you don't have to thank me. No one owes me anything. I share freely with the world what I know, and my family, they don't understand me. They think I've turned my back on God. They think I'm a traitor to my family line. That I'm against anyone having children, and that I'm against having a child. That I'm against there being new people in the world, and I'm like not patriotic. Then I'm against this. I'm against the nation. I'm an anti. I'm against society. That's that if we don't have militia, if we don't have soldiers that always are there, that will always be in the future as soldiers, as Army, as Navy, as Air Force, as the National Guard, as uh, infantry, then we are making that somehow that's being like anti-nationalistic. So if you're promoting not having children, you're promoting an idea that's against the status quo of the hierarchy of the military industrial religion complex, the media, the cultural media, military industrial religious medical complex, educational. Because maybe you're like you like you're maybe you're a doctor or a nurse, and you like your all your career revolves around infants and newborns. Or maybe you like work for a toy company, and the company you work for, they make all infant toys. Or there may be a diaper company, or you work at a diaper factory. And or maybe you're a school teacher and you're teaching youngsters, or daycare instructor. And like I come around, I'm somebody like me says, no, everybody should stop having kids. And you're like, oh no, there's going to be no more children. All the schools will be empty. All the swing sets, there will be nobody swinging on. There will be no children swinging on swing sets. There will be no kids going to zoos and playing games, and all the children will be just be older people. At some point in time, everybody will just be elderly with robots, no new people, and then we'll just go extinct. But the plan is further down the road. There is a plan that the animal kingdom will be allowed to go extinct. Most of the animals will become extinct. And then there may be one or two zoos left where there are live animals in those zoos. And at the very end of the world, if humans never go and become like Star Trek, then we'll live out our whole existence as humans on this planet and then die off. And then we'll leave behind all our old garbage that's buried in the landfills. It'll be a layer. It'll be a compacted layer of ground in the sandstone or the geologic strata. Will be a layer in the geologic strata of plastic and glass and steel and ceramics and metals, different kinds, and that'll just be what's left of the human race. And the last people here will be an old elderly group of white robed scientists that live in a community that's like underneath a mountain, underneath the continent of Antarctica. Will be a underground domicile, and the last human beings will take refuge under the mountains in Antarctica, and they'll have a zoo there, and those animals, before the world ends, the animals will just die out, and then the humans will die out. And that'll be the last of the oceans. Will just become dead. Cyanobacteria will be in the oceans. There will be the most complex life forms will be single cell, maybe. and it'll never evolve again. There'll never be a life evolving, and then the sun will nova. And then why are you bringing somebody here? Why? So that they can be just a part of that and live a whole life and like know that that's all it'll ever be, and that it'll never be a magic world of Star Trek of beaming in transporters and traveling faster than the speed of light. There will never be any super galactic ships that sail between the stars. We'll never get that far because we spent all of our time ruining our life support system on this planet. So most of the sociopaths and the psychopaths were given free reign, and most of the average people followed the sociopaths, and they were the ones that led the human race into the future. So it was Idiocracy. When I see that movie Idiocracy, I think that's good a reason. Isn't that a reason enough not to bring somebody here? You want to bring a child and have them live in Idiocracy? You want to force somebody here to live through Idiocracy. It would be better to I'd feel better inside of myself knowing I'm not going to bring anybody here. No one's coming here ever from me. I even went to the DMV and had them take organ donor off my driver's license. Because in the event that they're going to get an organ off of me, that could be, what does that mean? Organ could be my reproductive organs? No way. No one's ever going to get those. Those are going to get, when I'm gone, those are going with me. I'm not taking those. No one's taking those and reusing them or rethawing them out or cloning me or making a clone from me or it's not going to happen. I'm going to take that off my driver's license right now. No organ donor. No, none of that for me. I do fear in a way my genes are getting that they're moving in. They've moved into. I've donated blood. So there have been several times in my past where Red Cross I've donated blood. So my genetic genome is out there in other people that have been put into other people's bodies. So they've had my blood type match their blood type, and they've used my blood, which has my genome in it, in other people. So in a way, I'm kind of scared of that. That you're depriving someone the choice to make the choice themselves whether or not they want to be born and come alive into this world. So I heard that argument. I heard that the anger and the angst, the frustration vented towards the conditions that led up to the parents bringing the child about. They're hostile towards they're not directly hostile towards their parents directly. They're hostile towards that system that was in place that encouraged the parents to bring about a new person into the world. So it was the religious people promoting big families. It was a commanding officer giving a pep talk to his troops, telling them to go home and make love to their wives and have as many children as they possibly can, because the future military will need their children to join up and become and take their place in the ranks of the service. Because we have to maintain, the nation has to be maintained into the future. So any talk of a soldier not carrying out his duty of raising a child to be another soldier, then that seen as almost like a heresy. And to deny God's will and God's plan, the other people to come about in the future, somehow believing that there is a God that has a plan that's somehow supposed to be people here, and we're supposed to be bringing more and more people here as that part of that plan, and that's messed up. There was a show on Netflix called Gloria Vale. If you haven't seen it, it's about a religious cult in New Zealand and how the brainwashing is done and conditioning to They're not allowed to study real science, real evolution. Um, the only thing that's taught is creationism, New Earth creationists, and everything's based upon the Bible. All there's and they're raising farm animals, mostly cows, and producing milk and cheese and butter, and it's a the business itself. The community lives off the business of dairy farming. So now, I don't really criticize them for their methods that they're using, and how they're and the cohesiveness and the leadership of being everyone in the getting everybody to conform so that the group is survives and they're happy and healthy as a community. Those parts of that show, Gloria Vale, I thought, wow, that's pretty cool that they can get people to live together and be everybody seems to be getting along and happy. And there's like community events, there's music, and there's community meals, and there's a lot of interaction between the other members of the community, so people aren't alone. They're around a lot of other people a lot of the time. You kind of envy that. They have a family there that you wish, in a way, I kind of wish, oh, God, it'd be nice to have family around and then have other people and not be so alone. And to have everybody work together as a group to make a business thrive too but the sad part is animal agriculture. I can see like maybe a Buddhist commune where everyone in the commune, the men are celibate, the women are celibate. There's a separation of the men and the women in the commune, and everyone is there, and they're all there by their own consent. They agree to the terms and the condition of the statutes and the charter of the organization, and they all work together as a commune, as one. So they're all in a community and joined together as a community and living and sharing what they have, their resources, and benefiting from that. So not only do the people get to rely on other people to fall back on for guidance and emotional support and help in their work and their endeavors in financing, and everybody working together and pulling together as a team to make the community function into the future. That part would be good with celibacy. You could take people that are celibate in a monastery situation, men and women, or they could be sterile. All the men, the condition on entering the community would be men would have to get vasectomies, and the women would be have the tubal ligation, or they would be. But so it wouldn't matter if all the men that were in the community had vasectomies. Then the women and the men could have regular sexual relations and enjoy themselves, but the community would still be. There'd be rules about sharing resources and land and how to use the land. There'd be community property. There'd be like everybody would pull their own weight equally in their own skills, and they would combine their talents and abilities and their money, and be able to make a very, very nice, pleasant place, gardens with beautiful housing, and the shared areas would be like there'd be like the shared showers would be really clean. Everything would be kept up to a high. It would be very luxurious too, right? So they'd be, and that's the way it could be in the future. You could have like people living like that, more people living in that those kinds of situations where there's no children, where it's only adults, and all the adults, there's no one there is having children. That and the community is living and thriving, and their people have worked together enough to where there's enough money and enough support for people to pursue the arts and literature and philosophy and science and reading, and they have Yeah. But it never will get that way, right? I mean, the most highest ideals you can aspire to, that you never come close to that. You might be hopeful in your youth that you're dreaming about a better life for yourself. You see yourself as being successful, being well known, and being a good person, and being really good at what you do. And it never turns out that way. You end up getting stuck in something, and you hate it. You hate your life. You hate that your parents were just playing around, and then you were not intended. They didn't really plan for you to be here when you showed up. You showed up at a very inconvenient time because there already was a baby there, and then all of a sudden the mother is having another baby right after she has her first baby. So it's an inconvenience, and that had reverberations all the way through my whole childhood into my young adulthood. Was that if I was not born in the family I was born in, if I had never been born, if no one such as myself had never come about and existed in the family that I existed in, that more than likely all of my brothers and sisters today would be better off for that. That because I wasn't there, I didn't use up my parents' time and resources and energies and their attention, that they had more time and resources and attention to focus on them, on my brothers and sisters, because I didn't exist. So there was only 5 and not 6 kids in my household. And that would have been better. It's not that it would have been worse. It's that movie. It's a Wonderful Life. It's a good story. The acting is good. It's well written. It's interesting, and it makes you think. What the way the movie It's a Wonderful Life. This is the way I would rewrite the movie. It's a Wonderful Life. He jumps off the bridge. Everything's the same up to the point where he jumps off the bridge. I'll leave the movie the same to that point in the story. What happens when he jumps off the bridge, he dies. And when he dies, he's a ghost, he's a phantom, and he meets the angel in the afterlife, but they're still on the earth. And while he's floating, his body's floating down the river, the angel stays with him, and instead of him saying, "I wish I had never been born," and then the angel shows him the world as if he was never born into the world, that will not be that way. In the movie I would write it as he's dead, and all the events that happen after he's dead, after he commits suicide, what his wife goes through, what all his kids go through, what his brother goes through. Everything's worse because he kills himself because he thinks he's fixing a problem. The angel shows him all the horrible things that happen as a result of him committing suicide. So his wife has to have the children are taken away from her and they're put in an orphanage, and the wife has to go to a mental institution because she has a nervous breakdown. And then the brother-in-law, or the brother, he ends up going to prison because he's insane, and he has to be kept in an insane asylum. And the other guy's a drunk, and he becomes a worse alcoholic, and because he wasn't there to help him, because while he was alive, he had to support all these people. While he was alive, before he committed suicide, he had a job. He was supporting his wife. He had children. He'd spend time teaching, caring about his children and teaching the children. Now that he's killed himself, he's left all that. He's abandoned his duty as a father and as a husband. He's shucked that away, and he's abandoned it to end his own life. And all the rest of the movie is the angel showing him the repercussions of his decisions, of the decision that he made to kill himself, the bad things that happen after he does himself in. So the whole movie could be rewritten as that. So I'm going to end the conversation on that. And I'm sorry, I can't read the comments because my eyesight isn't that good. I'm not wearing my glasses, and otherwise I would be responding to your messaging on the message on the chat area. Um, I probably shouldn't take you away from your work. I mean, if you're obligated and you're on a time schedule, you should probably get back to what you were doing, what your job. And speaking of work, it's interesting because in my situation, I'm working from home now. I would have given my eye teeth. I would have sold my soul when I lived in where I used to live to be able to work from my home. I actually had an opportunity after I quit my job. I had an opportunity to work from where I lived, and I was like floating. I was floating a foot off the ground. I was so happy. It was like so wonderful. I could step out of my door and be near a beautiful place in a forest with a river and beautiful mountain views and countryside and all kinds of neat, interesting places to go and see and walk to and ride my bike and not have to get in my car and spend 2 hours in my car, get to my job in the office, talk in, start work all day, and then get back in my car and spend 2 hours driving all the way back home. I would have sold my soul. I would have given anything at all to be able to work from home. And now that I work, my job is 8 minutes in my car away from where I live because I got so burned out on my last job. This job I set to myself, I'm going to live close to my job and I won't have to commute. I'll be like so lucky. I'll be living like really close to my work. And so now I work at this place and they build a brand new office. They make everything all brand new offices. I go and I buy new clothes. I'm moved into my new office. I'm liking it. It's nice. They have a new cafeteria and they're setting everything up. And now all of a sudden this happens and I'm like walking out the door carrying my desktop computer and bringing it home and putting it on my kitchen table and plugging it into my internet and working like clocking in and clocking out from right here from my house and working right out of my home. When I didn't, it was like, why is it now it's doing that? Now I'm all of a sudden I'm given that opportunity. And like in my other job, because I lived in a really beautiful place, it was cheap to live there because it was far away from town. So I could afford a nice big house and on a bigger piece of property in the countryside for less than being in town, even a condominium nearby where I work. So yeah, I get on my raft, my life in my 3-man rubber raft, and I get in and I go and I float down the river to the park. And then I get my raft and I carry my raft up the street and I bring my raft. I put it in the river up across from a fish hatchery, and I float in my rubber raft all the way down the river. And then I go home in my house and I'd sit down and log and I'd start work. And I would keep a very detailed notebook of when I started, what I was doing. I could describe what I was doing when I started and when I'd finish. And then I had a 1099 DIV that I did DBA, doing business as, and I had to pay B&O tax on office supplies, and I had to file quarterly, and I was doing that out of my house, and I was like it was like, wow, I felt like wonderful. It was like my whole life was like the burden of having that long drive every day just was. And now here I am. I live 10 minutes away from my job, and their job is brand new offices, and I should be all like, wow. I should be like feel like privileged. It should be like, wow. I should feel like honored and privileged, and it'd be like anybody in their right mind to have to go and drive for an hour or 2 hours to an office to get to work, and then drive an hour, 2 hours to get home. They would be given the opportunity to take all their work they would do in their office move it in their house, have all the computer and all the software and the networking to be able to do the same thing that they're doing on site where they used to work. And the one downside, right? There's some good things that are going to transpire because of the quarantine. That the result of the quarantine, the whole business world is reshaping itself to accommodate people that never leave their houses, or that minimally leave their house and work from their home, and social gatherings and concerts and sporting events and dining areas and public events. Those are going to have to change. Probably people won't. It will be not a good thing. That it'll be like, it'll suck because now you can't go to a concert and just be in a big group of people. It will be against the law to do that. Or if it's done that, they'll have certain air conditioning that filters the air, blows it down, so people aren't breathing the air from the other people at the concert or at the restaurant or at the event. There's no, this person's breathing and they're breathing on you and you're breathing on them, and that won't happen. There will be fans on the ceiling that'll blow the air down, directly down, and keep the contaminated air blowing onto the floor. Where they'll have air filters, they'll have really good inside air filters, and it will filter the air in the building or in the offices, and it'll keep those little particles from getting in the air and getting in. They will be less likely to breathe in a particle because there's good air filtration in the office or in the business. There'll be like a barber shop, or it'll be a clothing store, or there'll be another kind of place where people are in close proximity, an elevator, or an area hallway where there's a lot of people walking back in heavy traffic, or there's a public square, public area where there's a train station, or an airport where there's a lot of public people in a public area, in public spaces, and they'll have these big air filtration setups where it'll suck the air, it'll blow the air out, and it'll be filtered air. There'll be filtered air blowing down from the ceiling down to the ground where everybody's walking around. So there won't. You go to a rock concert and it's the same thing. They may have big fans up on the ceiling where there's filters on the fans. Before the air passes through the fan, it filters it and blows the filtered air down onto the audience. Or there's a casino, or there's a hotel, or other places where they're filtering the air. They're making the air really clean and keeping the air circulated in such a way as to people don't get cross-contaminated. Not like on a cruise ship where they're breathing. It's a floating hotel, and all the air ducting and the air venting is being shared between the cabins. It's a closed circuit of airflow through one cabin to another cabin to another cabin. So somebody could be sick in the cabin that's 3 cabins down from you, and it's all the air that's being ventilated and pushed through the air conditioning HVAC system. That air is not filtered properly, so there's contaminated air, and there's other people that are breathing in that contaminated air in their on the ship or in the office building. And it's just, sorry, but it's going to be more expensive to have heating and ventilation and air conditioning systems in buildings. Heating and ventilation and air conditioning systems are going to have to accommodate viruses. Going to have to be enough. The air has to be either clean air has to be brought in from the outside, and that clean air has to be brought in more circulated to the office areas or to the hotel space or to the cabins or wherever people are dwellings that people have or they're eating. Those places, the air should be pure and filtered and blowing on the people, keeping other people from breathing in someone's bad air that's coming out of their body that has a sickness in it. So in health conscious, like in any kind of job where where it's dangerous, where there's a hazard, where you're working at, your employer will provide you with the proper safety equipment to perform your job. you work at a store, then the people that run the store, that own the store, provide all the people that work at the store with the proper respirators, with proper protection, face protection. Or if you work wherever you work on your job, it's it's a given that your employer provides you with safety equipment. You need gloves. The employer provides you with gloves. You need safety goggles. Your employer provides you with safety goggles. You need to wear a mask because there's contamination in the air. Then the employer is obligated and by legal statute must provide their employees with the proper safety precautions for breathing. So they're breathing, they're not going to get sick and then give it to somebody that in their family at home that's maybe a weaker person, then they're going to get sick. And if they're never here to begin with, they don't have to get sick. You see, that's the thing. Don't start the problem to have a problem just to solve a problem. If you don't need to start the problem to begin with, it's so basic and so simple. It's like, wow, why don't people get that? Especially people that are like that really don't believe, that know there really is no God, that know that that's just they only believe in what's physically real. They understand the real world. They understand biology. They understand geology. They understand all of the sciences, and they're clear, and the sciences are clear to them. Why do they still marvel and wonder and then are awestruck by how precious their being alive is? Is that, it's so like, oh wow, I'm just amazing that I'm here. The odds of me being here are so blah blah blah. They're so astronomically huge and high, and me coming about, the right spermatozoa hit the right ovum and joined together, and that union brought together these cells that I am today as this unique individual that only will happen this one time. But wow, you know what? I think my life is so great that I should be able to like make a replica. I should be able to replicate the cells in my body and and make someone, another entirely new, different person come here and live their life. Yeah, and you see, it would be more prudent, I believe, to be like use that same energy that you would take to bring the child here and spend the money and raise a child and spend all the time and the effort and the energy and the grief and the fortitude to train a child, so that you hope that child one day will become some great person that will do some profound scientific discovery, or there will be a super athlete that will win like 10 gold medals, or they'll like somehow their kid will be like the person that solves some physics problem that will eliminate poverty and hunger, that they'll have a medical advancement because their kid was here, that there will be such a medical advancement in the sciences that no one will ever have to suffer from a disease or get sick again, and people will all live to be really healthy and old, and crime will go away, and the world must continue on. The people must continue to reproduce, because somehow, somewhere in the future, so some great moment in some future event will happen that there will be a need for human beings to be in the universe. And it's like that. It's like that people can be very rational and very scientific, but also believe that somehow the planet is alive. Well, somehow this planet is like a brain, a living organism. That surface of the planet is a nervous system. We are a nervous system on the surface of the planet, and the planet in itself is Gaia, and that has a will to be healthy that has a will to continue on into the future, and we are servile to that, to the needs of nature. But we are a function to the natural world, because the natural world is this huge mind, this um, this oosphere or noosphere that was put forward by Teilhard de Chardin. That's the focus. It's the apex of evolutionary growth and change and development, is all moving towards this apex in the future, which is the noosphere, which will be a combination, which will be a Borg. The Earth will become a big Borg um, ship. And why? Why will there will be other people in the future that will be born into this, be forced onto this mad, crazy, loony road ride to nowhere, on a road to nowhere, coming from nowhere, going nowhere. What for? For what purpose? To what end? But you assert somehow in the depths of your soul, you assert to yourself that there is a reason to be here. That there is some grander purpose or event into the future, that things are moving towards it. Somehow human beings have to be here. And maybe there is a small group of people somewhere in some religious group that really understand this and really are knowing certainly about this, but they're very scientific. Which it's still like, well, we're still just not that important in the scheme of things. What's going to happen? What is a human monkey? We're just a monkey and we're just coming here, and we're doing a little play. We're putting on an act. We're dancing around. We're making some noise and putting things together and taking things apart, and going about our business, our day-to-day routine, eating, sleeping, making our getting ourselves excited and not excited, living our lives, planning this and planning that, and just getting old and dying. And that somehow that's leading up to something. Somehow someone in the family line in the distant future, some group of people or some individual in the family line is going to accomplish some great feat. And that the purpose of the family, to keep the family alive and going from generation to generation, is because of that event in the future, far future, that the lineage will lead up to that person that's going to perform some vital function to the universe to fulfill some grandiose need of the cosmos. And tell me, what is that?